So this week's sailing chat is quite a long one, but it's a really interesting story. We've got Matt Gotrel, MBE, Olympic rower, gold medalist, but before that a talented 49er sailor, and since hanging up his oars he's returned to sailing with quite some notoriety. He's taken up a grinding spot with SailGP, and that has led him to Team INEOS and the AC75. One of the few people in the sport to have sailed both the AC50/F50 and the AC75. So yeah, fascinating guy, really interesting story across multiple sports. So grab yourself a coffee and yeah, let's have some terrible boat chat with Matt Gotrel. So today with me, I've got an extra special terrible boat chat guest. They are an Olympic medalist in boating, not the boats we're used to though. It is Matt Gotrel, men's 8 gold medalist from Rio, MBE, but also a fine sailor through his youth, and now many people will recognise him off SailGP and recently moved to Team INEOS as a grinder. So welcome, Matt.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's great. I mean, one of the reasons I thought of you, obviously a lot of people watching these videos and following on YouTube will be RS 800 sailors, and you know, I know you've got a link to the 800 fleet in that your dad was one of the early RS 800 national champions, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. I think he was kind of like took it pretty seriously. I'm one of the first kind of guys who were kind of like the weekend warriors, I guess you call them. But they were, yeah. I mean, I was kind of dragged along with him as part of the circuit, really. So I don't think where it was. It was probably kind of like mid 2000s, and he was saying it was Steve Irish out of Draycott, and yeah, they kind of took it a bit by storm for a few years, and then I think people kind of caught up pretty quick, and it's developed pretty quick since then as well. How to keep an eye on things. But
no, I mean, your dad and Steve Irish were a formidable combination in the early days, and I think they only lost their crown to Ian Martin and Ben McGrain, who at the time were full-time 49er sailors. So yeah, it's some testament to your dad and Steve how competitive they were and how quickly they got to grips with the boat. So you did a bit of 200 sailing to start off with, is that right?
my dad used to sail back in the day in the 80s and stuff with Phil Morrison. Mm-hmm. So I think he kind of took a bit of a liking to the 200 when it came out, and yeah, I think we had 306 was our first one, and I basically was his lightweight crew option. So if there's ever less than like 10 knots, then I was stuck in the front. So I probably did that for quite a few years, and kind of I actually went when he moved into the 800. I kind of followed him really, and I was a bit tall for my age. So yeah, the 200 was awesome, but I actually ended up doing a couple of events with Steve Irish later on as well, because he bought this type of thing that the lads, when my dad and Steve were sailing 800, they both had 200s on the side that they'd go sailing with the wife or the kids and stuff. So yeah, anytime there's a bit of breeze, Steve would always ask me to jump in the front as well. So.
All right, well, we'll go back to the start again in a minute, but first of all, I'd like just to chat to you a little bit about your recent sailing. So you've just, well, I'll say just, you signed for Team INEOS. Was that just before Christmas or around Christmas time?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of went in with the intention of helping out, do some training and stuff, and yeah, then Ben asked me to join full time around Christmas time. So yeah, no, it's been pretty exciting.
So for people who are listening to this and don't know, Matt is a grinder. Initially got involved with SailGP on the GB team, and then has recently started up with Team INEOS, again in the same role as a grinder. So you're actually, interestingly, one of the very few people to have experience of both boats. Have you got on the 72 yet?
Yeah. No, we've been flying around that in Sardinia quite a lot actually. Just clocked up plenty of hours. So yeah, no, they're very different boats in some ways, but I think the F50, the SailGP boat, is a bit more like big dinghy really. You can kind of treat it like that, but the 75 has got, it's a bit of a different beast really. You feel like you're inside a floating container at times. Going pretty quick, but it's just slightly different roles as well for the grinder, I guess. In the 50 of SailGP, you're directly attached to the wing sheet, so you feel like you're basically like an additional trimmer. So the wing trimmer can only ease it really. You can't put it in without your help, so you kind of got to be ready for that. So you feel like you're more attached to the boat and you're more involved in what's going on. Like, this is kind of a bit more like you would do if you're kind of 800 crew, 409 crew type thing. That's basically what you're looking at. I spend the whole time just looking at the wing sheet and looking at the back of the wing, so that's really good. But then on the 75, you're basically just pumping oil around for other people to push buttons and try and make it go as quick as possible. So slightly different, but I think the rowing background has kind of helped me.
Interesting. And how does the sensation on the two boats? 'Cause obviously, on the F50, you're quite open, running about, crossing the tramp. How does that compare to the 72 in terms of kind of the feeling of actually sailing the boat?
Yeah, it's a bit of chalk and cheese, really, I think, at the moment. Things might change as the AC boats develop and get closer towards race time, but yeah, the F50 is just like a big dinghy, really. So as soon as you kind of step out of the hull onto the tramp and stuff, you really feel like you're kind of on your own a little bit, and you're kind of trying to find the nearest thing to hold on to at times. But it's more like fancy your seats type racing, and that's awesome. I mean, I have the fortunate, I don't know if it's good or bad, that I'm facing backwards on the 50, so I don't really know what's coming. So it kind of works both ways. It can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, but it's actually quite good fun to be able to just kind of see what's going on with the guys' faces more than anything. When you know something bad's going to happen. But the 75, I don't know. It's a bit more like you're kind of like brothers in arms, really. There's 8 grinders on the boat for starters, and you're kind of detached from the actual sailing element as much, and you're kind of just trying to make sure that there's no reason why they can't do a tackle, can't do a jive, or can't do any maneuver because there's not enough oil in the system. So you're basically there just making sure there's no excuses from your side of things. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a meteoric rise for you since returning to the sport. First of all, on the SailGP, stepping straight back into a high-profile team, and now we know with INEOS taking over the GB SailGP team, you've now found yourself on the first team of both boats, essentially. Did you envisage this return to sailing a couple of years ago when you were, working your 9 to 5?
Well, I guess when I was coming halfway through the last Olympic cycle, when I was in the rowing scene, I was kind of watching the Cup and I heard about kind of the grinders and stuff, and a few ex-rowers kind of previously had tried to go over and things like that, and I always thought I'd kind of fit the bill, I guess, in terms of my sailing background and then obviously the rowing training and things like that. But it's kind of a bit of a pipe dream, really. I mean, if you'd asked me after Rio what I'd like to have done, I would have gone to do the Cup straight away and get involved in sailing. But I actually went and did some testing with what was BAR. I think it was about 2015. I went down there just as they were setting up in Portsmouth, and I was kind of mid-training, and they were like, "Oh, we're looking for a specific grinder, so it's probably not quite the right time." And I was like, "Fair enough. I've got bigger things to worry about at the moment." And then, yeah, when I finished after Rio and started to get a proper job, I kind of thought that ship had sailed. Pardon the pun, but thought, I didn't think it was really going to be an option. And then I was just at work one day, so I worked at Rolls-Royce as an engineer in Birmingham, and I was the 9 to 5. And then sat at a desk, and I got a call from Dylan Fletcher, who I know pretty well from back in the day on 49er sailing, and kind of stayed in touch, and actually went to watch the race out in Rio. So we stayed close over the last probably 15 years or so now. It's pretty scary. He called me and said, "Do you fancy getting back involved in sailing?" And I was like, keep talking. what have you got on your sleeve? And he said, "Oh, Chris Draper, who I also knew well, is heading up a team for SailGP. It's this new event using the old cup boats, kind of a world tour. There'll be 6 boats all the same, 6 different nations. Are you interested?" And I was kind of bit his arm off at the time, but I didn't really know quite how big it was going to be. That was a bit of a surprise, but it was thanks to those lads, Dylan and Chris. Really, it's been a pretty steep learning curve, and trying to convert my legs into arms, I guess. But it's been pretty amazing, really.
And
long may it continue.
And how's it been, kind of converting your rowing legs into grinding arms in terms of the power output? Because obviously, you must have a pretty big VO2 max, big oxygen capacity, but in terms of the actual muscle groups, it's quite different grinding from rowing, I'd imagine.
Yeah, no, it is really different. I think it's taken me quite a while, really, to actually be able to adapt. I think the biggest thing that used to happen was just basically I'd blow up before my heart rate could even get anywhere near to what I knew it was capable of. So I'd just be stopping sessions just because my arms would be dead. And for sure, it's taken probably over a year, I'd say, to actually get to a position where you see other guys on the cup boats and stuff, and kind of what numbers they're at and things like that. So there is a bar kind of set where you kind of really want to try and get to, and I guess the same in rowing as well. You have these kind of people above you look up to, and that's kind of what keeps pushing you on. So we're getting there slowly now, but it has been a bit of a change. Having a grinder in my garage has definitely helped.
So for people at home who might have had a go at the coffee grinder in the gym and looked at their watt outputs, what sort of range are we talking about to get yourself a call up from Ben Ainsley?
I don't know. About for anything like steady state stuff, you're looking at 200 watts ish for 90 minutes, 2 hours or something. That's some of the longer sessions we do. And then when you get down to the lower ends, like your 10 minutes and flat out, you're probably looking at somewhere between 300, 400 watts. Varies, I guess. But I'm slowly getting to the point where my arms are probably stronger than my legs are.
Cool. So let's go back. So obviously I know you from old 29er national squad, 2005.
God knows.
Yeah, gosh, 15 years ago now, back in the day. I mean, at the time, did you have any idea that you'd be a, elite level sailor?
I don't really know. I mean, I think at that time, when you're kind of, 15, 16, still at school, you're kind of just doing it because you love it and it's great fun, and go away every weekend and with people, like-minded people, just going yachting and stuff. It's pretty cool. And then I think the biggest change for me was a point of when you kind of finish school and you're like, what to do next? And I think a lot of people, the numbers of people who drop out from youth sailing is pretty big, actually. And I kind of took a punt and went supporting an campaigning straight away, which was a bit of a challenge. But it was that point where you realise that there is like an elite end to the sport, and when you're going out yachting and sailing in Weymouth, when you cruise around with Stevie and Ben, for instance, before they went to the games, and you realise that there's a real kind of top tier of sailor out there. So just to be sailing around with those guys, that was kind of the first time when you realised that, man, you're sailing around with some kind of bloody good sailors here. And if you beat them in the odd race, training race and stuff, it's only training and things like that, but that's the kind of stuff when you realise that actually you could be quite good at this. And then I think the biggest thing for me was when I kind of started taking it more seriously, it was just after Beijing, and then at the start of the London cycle, and there was about 10 49ers, and you looked around the boat park and the standard was ridiculous. I mean, you had world champions who'd come back, Chris Draper and Simon Hiscox would then split up and gone in 2 separate boats, so you kind of had double the amount of trouble with those guys. And just the competition was super, super intense, and I think that's I fell away a little bit as the new kid on the block, and that's why I decided to go to uni and keep fit, which was my new challenge, and that was going to be rowing, and then it kind of took off from there.
So this must be an incredible story, and obviously I think I still saw you a little bit when you were just starting out in the 49ers and you were sailing with Rashley, and might have seen you around Weymouth,
every now and then obviously you dropped off, went to uni, and saw it was it Loughborough you were at?
Yeah.
And then, so just talk us through how you find out you're a secret gold medalist rower. Like, how did that work out? Because I mean, just as a general thing, I mean, as sport seems to go more and more back to kind of like child proteges who you have to be in a sport from when you're kind of like 10 and practicing, and here you are, you've done a bit of elite sailing, you go to uni, you want to keep fit, and what happens next? Talk us through this transition.
Yeah, well, for starters, I mean, you'll know as well, like when you're kind of a youth sailor, like 29ers and then going to 49ers, they love to do a bit of stuff on the rowing machine, I guess. And I remember one of the physiologists once said to me, "Oh, if you ever stopped sailing, you'd probably make quite a good rower." It was like a passing comment. And then I went up to uni, and I'd had a chat with Barry Edgington, who was running the development program with the RYA, and he was like, "Just kind of keep sailing and kind of do your degree, and then we'll try and get you back involved at some point, and we'll just keep in touch." And I went up to uni, and I thought, well, I might take the opportunity to join a club and try something different. Cycling was always a big thing of mine growing up as a kid. My dad used to race bikes back in the 80s. So I was thinking about that, and I was like, maybe triathlon, and then I thought potentially rowing. I'm kind of being 6'5", and so I was like, it's probably not a bad idea. And then I walked into the bazaar with all the sports clubs and stuff, and this kind of big 6'5", 6'6" guy put his arm around me and said, "Oh, you're coming rowing." I didn't really have a choice after that point. And it's just a very kind of fortunate series of events, really, that my first year at Loughborough, there was a second year student who wanted to be a coach basically, and he'd taken 2 gap years in Australia coaching rowing, and he wanted to run the talent ID program just for freshers basically. So he tested kind of 50 freshers and then picked 10 of us to row as a group all year and train kind of relatively full time, I guess, as a
and by this
sports.
And by this point, had you like realised your numbers were good? I mean, at what point did you think you had the potential?
Just enjoying it and just enjoying the challenge, really. It was more the fact that there was always people that were better than me at certain things, whether that was strength in the gym or whether it was on the rowing machine or technically on the boat. So I never really thought that I was ever going to be the best at it. I just wanted to keep pushing myself. And
I think, like, from the outside, like, I think I clocked you'd been at Henley, saw some pictures come up on Facebook, and then I saw again that you'd been to the European Championships, but it's right after Rio, and I was just like, oh, you know, he's probably just like put in some kids because no one wants to, you know, everyone's out.
London, sorry.
After London, sorry, and, you know, they probably just put in some kids because, you know, all the main crew's out boozing, and
it's basically what it was.
and then, like, slowly over the next few years, kept on seeing you turn up to the World Championships. So you had a pretty good. I mean, were you there in 2013, or was that a year?
Well, so actually, yes. So it was my first year in the team. Mm-hmm. I like to put it in perspective. When you join like the British rowing team, you think you're training hard at university or whatever. People will come from clubs where they've taken the gap year or whatever to try and spend some more time training. So you think you're training hard, and then you turn up and you're doing kind of 3 sessions a day, 200k of rowing a week. You have 1 day off every 2 to 3 weeks. So I just kept my head down for that first year. Next year, kind of tried to do as much of the training as I could without missing sessions, and ended up getting selected for the 8.
I didn't realise you were in the men's 8 until I switched on the TV, because I think by this point it'd probably been a couple of years since I'd seen you at Henley and in those European Championships. I hadn't really seen much since, and then obviously 2014 flicked on the TV to watch a bit of rowing. I was like, that guy looks like Matt Gotrel. And then I was like, is it Matt Gotrel? I was like, well, he was doing rowing a while ago, and I did see him in a GB outfit a while ago, so it could be him. And then it was only like when he zoomed in, after the finish that I was sure it was you. I was like, wow, this is incredible. But then you backed it up with back-to-back World Championship wins in 2015, didn't you?
Yeah, 2015 was a good year. But basically, Jürgen, it was the Olympic qualification year. So basically, he kind of looked at all the events and thought which is going to be the hardest boat to qualify. And 8 tends to be quite hard because there's only 7 boats in the Olympics. So basically, he wanted to make sure that the 8 qualified. And he thought that he could put all the top guys in the team in the 8, and then the second best guys in the 4 and the pair, and then still be able to qualify all the boats. So for me to be selected in that boat was pretty amazing. So I was sat in the bow seat with, like, God knows how many Olympic medals in front of me, and just some of the best rowers in the world at the time. And I was just sat there watching it all happen in front of me. So it was a good year. That one, it was kind of as straightforward as it goes in terms of rowing, in terms of the training and everything. It was just a great 8 to be a part of, and we only won it by, I think it was like 0.3 of a second or something less than. But it was just, we kind of got to the point with that 8 where we knew we could win if he wasn't our best day, which was quite nice. Nice position to be in. But yeah, no, that was 2015 was a good year, and then off the back of that, it all started to get a bit real with Olympic selection and stuff in 2015-2016 season.
And did you think you were always going to get a seat in that men's 8 for Rio?
But Jürgen kind of took me and my pairs partner to one side in our January training camp and said, I want you guys in the 8. All you've got to do is kind of come in the top 6 at trials, and then you'll be in the 8. So that was quite, I don't know, as an athlete, it's quite a good and bad thing. It's like a double-edged sword, because it's nice to know you have that, you can then relax and you can take your training properly, and you know it's all part of the process to the Olympics, which is longer term than your final trials. But then on the flip side of that, you need that kind of hunger and aggression in a rowing race, just to be able to get out there and put it all on the line. And when you know you don't really need to because you've already been selected, it's a bit weird. So yeah, to finally get selected in the 8 was amazing. But again, it's just part of the culture we were in. It didn't really mean anything because no one gives out medals for going to the Olympics. You got to go there and do the job. So
and then leading up into Rio and the games themselves,
we turned up in Rio having not won a race all year, really. We'd been beaten by everyone who had entered, who had to qualify for the games at some point that year. But we kind of knew we were capable of winning on our best day. We had kind of 6 weeks from training camps. We'd gone to altitude for a couple of weeks and gone down to Portugal for a finishing camp, which is what we do every year. So we kind of turned up and knew we were in quite good shape. But in the heat, we kind of just walked away from everyone, and that was kind of the first time I thought we're kind of halfway there. We've got one more race left to do, and the Germans were in the other heat to us, and we were beating them by about second to halfway. So we kind of knew we were quick and we knew we could do it. And then we had basically 5 days between our heat and our final, so that was a weird time when everyone else is racing all the time, and because there's not many entries in the 8, and because we went straight to the final, it meant that we had 5 days of just twiddling our thumbs, trying to stay focused and keep kind of make the little marginal gains that are going to give us that edge, really. And the final was probably one of the easiest races I've ever done, which is a bit weird. It was one of those ones where you've got so many moving parts and 8 folks doing 8 different things. Ideally not. And it was one of those days where it all just kind of slotted into place. And to put it in perspective, over the previous kind of 3 world champs that you're saying when you watched on TV and stuff, where they're like, I think cumulatively there's about a second the winning margin. So I think we won 2 by 0.3 and 0.7 as well, something like that. And by halfway the Olympic final, we had 3-second lead. So it was, at that point, all I was saying to myself was just don't screw it up. I think it was a bit of a crosswind came in at halfway, and it's a nightmare in a rowing. But I got from the sport where all I wanted to do was pray for wind to rowing where any wind was an absolute nightmare. So bit of crosswind came halfway, and I was like, I'll just nurse it through this, and we'll be all right. And then as we got close to the line, rowing's a great sport, and the fact that you can see the people that you're beating. I guess in sailing as well, but there's not many kind of like sprinting, like track, or like cyclists, for instance. You never know if there's someone behind you.
Yeah.
And like sprinting and running, whereas in rowing, the further you get ahead, the more you can see of the rest of the boats, and it actually relaxes you, and then you can just keep doing your thing. So, yeah, the last like 500 meters of that race was pretty mad. That seems like yesterday, really.
Let's talk a little bit about your current sailing then, on the AC75, the America's Cup, and of course SailGP.
I don't know what you guys think of the whole SailGP thing when you get to watch it and excited by it, or is it just kind of another thing that's going on?
No, I love it. Like I've watched pretty much all of it. I mean, just seeing the teams develop their boat handling as well in the first year with limited time on the boat, the steps forward the boats are making, I was quite impressed with, and especially I think that was the big thing about the GB team in the first year. That actually, in terms of Dylan and Stu, probably the least experience sailing an F50, or sailing a foiling cat out of any of the boats, but managed to, alongside yourself, put it together and be really competitive. It's just a shame you had a few mishaps at the end of the season.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. It was pretty impressive to watch, actually. When we started out in Sydney, and we were like, "Oh my god, we've got heaps on here." But yeah, it just kind of kept developing. And those guys picked it up so quick. It was just quite raw. I mean, I think you probably didn't see much of the practice racing, but I think if you'd taken the practice races for the year, we pretty much won all of them,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous. And Cowles was a perfect example of that. So, like the boat handling side of things, we got down, but it's obviously that race situation and the experience of sailing these big boats in what tend to be big breeze or tricky conditions. We kind of got caught out a few times and just got to learn the limits a little bit. But it's a bit disappointing that kind of those guys got pulled away this season. But we'll see what happens. With that. It's definitely exciting to be involved in. I'm glad you guys see it from the outside. When you're racing these boats, it's absolutely bonkers when you realise there's now 7 of them flying around.
And how
watching the starts and stuff is crazy.
And how was it obviously Sydney this year? You absolutely dominated with with Ben. Obviously, Ben must have spent a load of hours on the F50 and its AC guys. So obviously not the same boat, but similar sort of setup. And then you had Goobs come on board as well. And who was it? Luke.
Parker.
Yeah.
Parkinson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ben was pretty staggered when he jumped on the boat. I think he wasn't really expecting it to be like as plug and play as it is. I mean, he came out from the cup when he realised, and then when they were kind of pumping oil and waiting for a green light to go before they could do manoeuvres and things like that. And you jump in this thing and you can basically throw it around like a dinghy, especially when you've got Parker and Goobs in there who they basically make the boat go fast and keep it as level and keep it flying the whole time. So kind of made it as easy as possible as we could for Ben to just sail the boat, and I think he loved it. I mean, as soon as we got out there, we were just doing hours and hours of just yachting around. It was pretty good fun, and it was impressive to watch him race. Really, is just kind of just decision making and try to make it as easy as possible for him. Like, just literally get his head out of the boat, sail the boat. The boat would go fast for him, and he just had to put it in the right place and slotted straight back in really seamlessly, which is you never really know when you've got a new team, and kind of there's a bit of expectation, I guess, when you look at the lineup of guys in the boat and things, but to actually go out there and do it was pretty awesome.
I mean, people have questioned Ben, and obviously the America's Cup result last time round wasn't what he would have wanted, but every time he gets in a one design boat, he would say one design when it was in the America's Cup World Series before Bermuda, BAR then won that, and now back in with SailGP with INEOS, one design again, and obviously an incredible team, but steps in, and you can't fault his decision making around the course. It's incredible, and that's easy even from behind a screen on the other side of the world. It's easy to see that there's nothing wrong, and people compare him to Nathan and Peter Burling in terms of you have to have sailed a high performance skiff or a moth to get it, which Ben hasn't, but he's certainly got the decision making skills to.
He's definitely got the minerals for it, that's for sure. But I think like the best thing about kind of that is you do like when you look at it from a cup side of things, where he's gone from BAR, didn't have the best cup last time round, and obviously preparing for this one. I think it's just a big bonus for the whole team when you know that you've got some of the best sailors in the world sailing for you. It kind of, you're kind of in a good place. Just kind of puts the pressure on the engineers, I guess, to make sure you got, and the designers to make sure you got a good boat, because essentially that's what it comes down to. But no, we've definitely got some good sailors nursing around.
So going back to the cup, I'll start wrapping it up now because I've had you on for ages and I'm a little bit worried it's going to be hell to edit down. But
you're going to have all the editing to do.
Yeah, I might have to split it up into a couple of episodes. But before I let you go and head off for the evening, you must have got a bit of sailing in Cagliari in the 75 and probably had a little bit of a weather eye on Luna Rossa, seeing how they were doing. So you probably have a few ideas. And obviously everyone out there was dying to watch the first, the first two World Series events, which have now been cancelled, unfortunately. So what I'd like you to do is, obviously you'd probably pick yourself as the top team, but where would you put, in terms of the finishing positions of American Magic, Emirates, and Luna Rossa? How would you rank those three teams from what you've seen? Where would you expect them to finish, assuming you guys would win?
Yeah, well put. I think most people have got quite a bit of catching up to do with the Kiwis at the moment. I'd say they probably had a bit more time, as you would do being the holders and stuff. They're definitely a bit more ahead of everyone. And then Luna Rossa, very quick in a straight line, struggle with corners, I'd say, at the moment. So it depends on the wind range, really. But I'd probably put American Magic ahead of Luna Rossa at the moment. But yeah, it's a bit of a hard one when you haven't really sailed around any of the boats at all. So yeah, I'll probably go Kiwis first, and then American Magic, and Luna Rossa.
Ah, nice.
It'd be close though. It'd be close. I think the Kiwis have definitely done the most sailing out of anyone by a long way. So I think between everyone else, I guess it'd be a bit. If it was a race right now, it'd be pretty interesting. But again, everything's got so much time to change as well. With no racing, I guess, as well. It's going to be a thing. So back to development and in the simulators and stuff, and we'll see what comes out next. But they're pretty crazy boats, to be honest with you. They're just bonkers.
Well, we're all absolutely dying to watch it, but unfortunately, we'll just have to wait a few more months.
Yeah, no, it'll come round soon enough. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Oh well, great. Thanks very much for your time, Matt. That's been absolutely fantastic.